Welcome to another glorious day of Bhagavad Gita Sadhana. There we go. It's wonderful to see you and to be seen. My name is Atmadarshan. That's my spiritual name, and it does mean vision of the true self with a capital S. And my legal name is Laura Santoro, and you can call me either one. We're looking at how to be ourselves in the world with the help of the Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the many, many translations out there, embracing the song of your soul, from which I'll be chanting today. We are going back to verse 9 of chapter 6. We talked a bit about this yesterday in relation to evil and good, but we're picking out another part of the verse today. So to remind you, here's the verse, and if you do happen to have this book, I'm chanting from the left side, but we will refer to the right side today. Okay. Verse 9. Just a brief bit of background. Krishna is explaining to Arjun how Arjun will know he's progressing on the spiritual path, that he's progressing especially in meditation. The name of this chapter is Dhyan Yoga, the yoga of meditation. Verse 9. The one excels who is the same to comrades, friends, and enemies, to relatives and to strangers, to evil and to good alike. Woo! This can seem like a tall order, especially given what many of us are probably taught very young, that there are strangers, and strangers are dangers, and then there are people we are close to, and we're supposed to trust them explicitly, implicitly, even though unfortunately research has shown that relatives or people you think you are close to are much more likely to be violent to you than strangers are, which is shocking. But why do we persist with this belief that we pass on to others, that strangers, look out, relatives, people we're close to? Even in the previous line, there's the delineation between comrades, friends, and enemies. We need to learn how to treat those people the same. And by that, I don't necessarily mean that if you're having a birthday party that you usually invite your family to, you have to invite every stranger on the block. But that we're able to apply the same level of discernment to the actions of those we perceive as close to us versus those we perceive as having really nothing to do with us. So if we look at, if you do have this book and there you go, Embracing the Song of Your Soul, and you look at the right side translation, which has some of the Sanskrit kept in the original and also the more original sentence structure, which is more similar to German than English. The first line of this verse is one who is of the same buddhi to all these people, comrades, friends, enemies, relatives, strangers. Buddhi is the higher mind, the ability to apply discernment. And oftentimes, we don't apply that same level to people we're close to. We tend to overlook things purposely in those who are close to us versus strangers. Behaviors from strangers that would be like, that is not appropriate and do not do that to me, we might take from relatives, right? Because maybe we've been told we're supposed to let somebody in our family kiss us or touch us when we don't want them to. Have to give them a hug, even if we don't want to, if we're uncomfortable around them. Whereas with a stranger, it'd be like, oh, I don't think so, right? It can come down to money and finances, even just to being a big fan of the judge shows on USA TV. I find it interesting because sometimes there will be relatives suing other relatives for money. Like, I I think of a case where a mother loaned a daughter some money, and the daughter, a substantial amount, and the daughter never paid it back. And one of the judges said, "You really shouldn't be in court suing your own daughter." Would she say that if the money had been taken by a stranger? And what's the difference? But we have this in our minds oftentimes. We stop listening to our intuition that tells us what's appropriate and what's not, just because we label somebody a relative versus a stranger. And as many of us have found out through 23andMe, and I'm not endorsing anybody, by the way, and other genetic tests, the people that we're told are family sometimes aren't, and the people we're told are strangers sometimes aren't. So the lines can blur. I encourage you today to really observe and contemplate and consider how you let certain groups of people treat you versus other groups. Yeah. And note if that gives you any insight. And conversely, if you like this, if you prefer to focus more on yourself, how you treat other people based on their labels. So, for example, I've had someone in my life for years that I just considered like a colleague or somebody I knew through yoga circles. And then we found out we were related, distantly related, but related. And it's totally, from my end, changed how I view the relationship. We went from like just not even speak, friendly if we saw each other, but now we hang out a couple times a week. It's just wild. That little shift in the label. So that'll give us something to observe today, I'm sure. All right. We'll do our pose first to balance the mind, and then some contemplation. Remember, listen to yourself. Take care of yourself. Notice if you hear that from strangers more than relatives. That phrase, take care of yourself. All right. Switch sides. All righty. If you saw me checking things out, there have been some bucks around here, deer, male deer. It seems early, but they're already getting their horns, their antlers, and they can become a little more aggressive. So I'm just watching out for the deer, the dangerous deer. Could be exciting. All right, contemplating the way we treat those we label as relatives versus strangers and how we allow those two categories to treat us. Should be an interesting 5 minutes. Welcome back. If you gained any insights, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. You can email or text, those of you who have that contact info. So in Bhagavad Gita, a great civil war is brought about because there's a prince, and he knows he can get away with everything, including murder, because his father, the king, will hold him immune from any consequences. Whereas the same person, if they were a commoner, would have been in jail or even run out of the country. And the king's advisors are always telling him, stop treating your son like this. It's going to cause a problem, and it leads to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. Something to consider as we go about our day. And today's practice is dedicated to all my cousins, and there are many of them. You're awesome. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and see you next time. Until then.